Hi everyone, this is Heather Smith with Storyville Photography, and today I'm going to show you how to achieve this edit. So this is where we are going to end up, and this is where we are going to get started. So before and after. Now the first thing I have done, as you noticed, I have opened my image into Lightroom, and I'm going to straighten it. So I'm just going to grab the crop tool, and I'm going to line my ruler edge up with this bridge. You can't really tell it's a bridge, but it is. And then I'm going to hit the Simplicity preset number 1, and I'm just going to move the temp slider over to the right ever so slightly to warm the image up. And then I'm going to open it up into Photoshop. Okay, now that we are in Photoshop, I am going to duplicate the background layer by hitting Command J. And the first thing I want to do is spend a little time cleaning up the background. As you can see, this bridge line does nothing for the image. It just pulls away from our beautiful subjects and distracts, along with this little photo bomber, and we got another one down there too. So the first thing I like to do is grab the patch tool, and I'm just going to sample an area that I do not want, like this thick black line, and sample another area above that does not have that. And I'm going to do the same over here. And just pull it up to an area that I like, and voila. Now, as you can see, that didn't really help with this bridge as you get close to the subjects and our photo bomber, but we can take care of this guy down here. As I get closer to the subjects, I like to use the cologne stamp, and I'm just going to sample other areas, and it is going to bleed onto my subjects, but I'll show you a quick and easy way to remove using a layer mask. And this is also going to help get away some of her flyaways. Okay, and that looks good to me. So now I want to add a layer mask, and I want to grab a black brush at 100% opacity, and I want to put the hardness of the brush at like 48%. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to lower the opacity so I can kind of see where I want to paint off the cologne stamp that I just did. I'm going to try and make this quick so I don't bore you guys to death, but if you are printing this or you're doing this for a customer, I recommend spending a lot more time and getting your mask really perfect so you don't have any halos around the edge. And there might be other ways to do this. This is just how I like to, you know, kind of clean things up. But there's like a million different ways to do things in Photoshop. And that's probably why we all love it so much, right? Okay, over here. Such a beautiful family. And if you kind of bleed off over to the edges, all you need to do is hit the X button to where you have a white brush and run over it to get rid of that halo. Okay, and now I'm going to bump it back up to the full opacity, and I'm going to reduce the hardness to 0, and I'm going to use the soft white brush to kind of paint over the edge here to add some of that back. There we go, and that's good enough for me and for this tutorial purpose. Okay, we're going to zoom out, and this is the before and after. And you can spend a little bit of time kind of cloning out or patch tooling if you got some distinct lines where you might have missed a little bit of the area that you wanted to remove. But this looks good enough for me. The next thing I want to do is add a little bit of the water onto here. I had a lot of questions on how I did that. And it was really easy, guys. I just took some water from a different image and I selected it. And then I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. And then I want to free transform it, Command T, and just kind of pull it down you can shrink it up. If you want to tweak the size, just hold the shift down as you're moving it. Get more of the water in there. Okay. And now I just want to add a layer mask to that and grab a soft black brush at 100% opacity. Zoom in a little bit. And mask some of that off, bring the feet back, and we can always pull the water layer down, which looks like I'm going to have to do. So just again, Command T will free transform it. And I'm going to hold the shift down to bring more of that water up. And it might not be identical to the example that I showed, guys, because it's kind of hard to do when you're freestyling here like myself. That looks good enough. Okay. Continue with the masking, but make sure you're clicked on the layer mask or you'll just start painting on white on your subject or black, which I just did. It's all about really wowing your customers and adding details where you can. As you can see, it would have looked totally fine without the water, but it just adds so much more dimension with it, and once I add a little bit of blue to it, it's just going to look really, really pretty, and I love it. Now that I have my background how I'd like it, I'm going to go to Layer and Flatten Image, and I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate the background layer, and I want to go to Filter and Liquify. I'm going to shrink that down so you guys can see what I am doing here. Okay. So I'm going to use this little warp tool, and I'm just going to bump up her hair a little bit, add a little extra body to it. And don't be too concerned about those flyaways. I'm going to add a little painterly to her hair, and it's going to just smooth that out and make it look wonderful. And how she's standing, it kind of just bumps her out a little bit more than I would like. That doesn't make it super flattering. So I'm just going to expand this warp tool and just kind of shrink it in just ever so slightly. Okay. And that looks good to me. So this is the before and after. And now I'm going to get to some of the fun editing. So I'm going to flatten this one more time. Hit Command J. And I'm going to go into my filters. Camera Raw filter. Shrink this in so you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to go over to my presets, and I'm going to add a simplicity preset number 3. So we already used one over in Lightroom, and now I'm adding another simplicity preset on top of that. I just love stacking them sometimes. It looks so pretty to me. And hit OK. And now I'm going to duplicate that layer, and as you can see, it kind of took, their skin took on a little bit of orangey red tones. So I'm just going to go into the filter, Camera Raw filter, and I am going to go down to my color mixer, and I'm going to decrease the orange tones ever so slightly to about like 13%. And as you can see, the presets kind of really saturated his blue, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull the blue tones down while I'm in there in the saturation, and that looks good to me. And I think I want to pull up a little bit of the shadows, so I'm going to go into the basic and just pull those up ever so slightly. And that looks good to me. So before and after. Now I'm going to flatten it again, so layer, flatten, and I am going to run the painterly action, so you have to make sure that you have the background base selected, or it's just not going to work. So select that, hit play, continue, and for this I only want the painterly base on part of my image, so I'm going to hit the white layer mask and invert it, Command I. Then I'm going to grab a soft white brush at 100% opacity, and I'm going to just kind of brush it on certain areas like the hair. It just kind of adds that dreamy effect to it. I love it. Now, if I was going to do this again, I would zoom in and get more of these flyaways like I did on the original image that I showed you. But since my client already has the image edited to my perfection anyways, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I also like how his shirt looks with the painterly on it. It kind of blends the whites and the oranges and just makes it look like he was painted, and I just love it. He's oh so cute. Okay. A little bit on Dad's pants. A little bit on the vest. Okay. So that is the before and after. And the next thing I want to do is work a little bit on retouching their skin and their eyes and all of that fun stuff. So I am going to go to layer and flatten. And then I want to go up to my retouch. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to duplicate the background layer, Command J. And I just want to get rid of a little bit of their dark circles. Everybody has them, guys. And the easiest way I found to lighten them is to grab the patch tool and just select around. And then sample the lighter skin. And if you keep it at full opacity, it looks okay, but a little too fake. So I like to take it down a little bit to like 63. So it just lightens it up, but you still have like the definition of their true features. Oop. And then baby girl looks completely fine over there. Okay, and now I want to go into the Brighten Skin and Eyes and hit play. Open that up. Click on the black layer mask. I'm going to do the Brighten Eyes. Their skin already looks bright enough to me, at least at the moment. And I'm going to select a white soft brush at 100% opacity and just run it over their eyes. His face just makes me smile. Here we go. It's a little bit too much on him, so I'm going to take it down to about like 48%, soft black brush, and mask it off. So it's at 50% strength. Okay, so before and after. And then I want to go into the rosy lips and cheeks and hit play. 100% opacity, soft white brush, and I'm going to click on the vibrant coral. Make sure you have the mask selected and not the color itself. And they're going to look like a clown at first, but we will lower the opacity quite. Oops! There we are, back into the Lightroom. Okay, now let me scroll on over to Sweet Hannah. So serious there. I like to go to 0 and kind of increase it to where my eye likes it, making it very subtle before and after. And now I'm going to zoom out, and I want to go to the ultimate dodge and burn. If I can find it. There we go. Hit play. Open up the big grouping and then select the area you want to work in first. I like to start at the bottom and work my way up top. So I'm going to go into the dodge and burn clothing. A little tongue-tied today, guys. And I'm going to do the dodge and burn combo where it dodges and burns at the same time. I just love it. And I'm going to paint it over her dress. And as you might notice by now, sometimes certain colors don't look the best. If you do the dodge and burn combo, it just kind of saturates. So I'm going to leave Dad alone in his blue glory over there. Because it just, when I tried to run it over it earlier, it just kind of, well, I'll show you. You see it just kind of saturates it. And if we want to increase the opacity, it's just not a good look. So remove that from Dad and increase opacity. There we go. And I'm going to hit up their shoes a little bit, really make them pop. Little Hannah's pants. Okay. And that looks good to me, before and after. I'm going to go into the Dodge and Burn Skin and Hair. And it's going to come on really bright at first. I will lower it once I'm done. I like to see where I'm painting so it kind of comes on strong. And if it goes onto any area you don't want, just hit the X. It will convert it to a black brush and you can just paint off where you don't want it. A little bit on his hand. Lower that and paint it on her hand a little. Okay, and then we're gonna start it at 0 and just kind of work our way up. And that looks good to me. So before and after, and now I'm gonna go into the environment and do the Dodge and Burn combo. And I am going to use a soft white brush at 100% opacity, and it's gonna come on a little strong. We will dial it back. We don't want it over there. As you can see, it can blow some of the highlights out. We don't want that. Start it at 0 and just kind of pull it up a little. And that looks good to me. And then I want to dodge the rocks a little more, really make them stand out. And you can duplicate layers as much as you want. So if I wanted the strength even stronger, I would just hit the Command J on the layer that I want, and it will add more dodging to it. Gonna burn a little over here. I might run it over the background just to darken it up even further. Okay, and that looks good to me, before and after. It makes such a huge difference, guys. Okay, the next thing I want to do is add some pretty blue color to the water. So I'm going to go into the Storyville Tranquil and hit play. And as you can see, it's a black layer mask. So I'm going to use a soft white brush at 100% opacity. And you can always dial it back when you're done. But I like them to come on strong so I can see where I'm painting, which you have probably noticed by now with my other actions. Always nice to see where you're painting so you don't get it in areas that you don't want, like over there. So I'm gonna turn that down to about 50% opacity and brush off the harsher lines back here. And you can always play around and adjust, like starting at 0 and do the strength that you want. I'll probably leave it at about 76% there. And that looks good to me. The color kind of just pulls in from their outfits, and I just love it. So before and after. The next step is I'm going to play the Storyville image base. Hit play. And as you can see, we do not need to use the whole action. We don't need the brighten up, and we don't really need the contrast. I kind of like it. So I don't know. I may go back and add that. I'm not quite sure yet. I want to leave the darken edges, but I want to make sure it's not on my subjects at all. So I'm going to hit the white layer mask, select the black brush, 100% opacity, just make sure it's off of their skin and stuff. Make their shoes pop a little bit more by wiping that off. And that looks good to me. I'm going to keep the color dazzle on. I like what it does to the background. It just brightens it up a little bit more with the color. So that's the before and after. Now just a few more things left to do, guys. So I'm going to go into the image toning, hit the Storyville warm up, play. And I'm going to dial that back quite a bit, but I want to warm it up just a teeny bit. So before and after. And the next thing I'm going to do is add a sun glow up top. So I'm going to go into the Storyville Sun Overlay 2, and you can get this in the Ultimate Light Pack. I'm going to select it, Command A, copy it, Command C, and then paste it, Command V, set it to screen mode, and then Command T to transform it and move it to where I'd like it. Drop it up top. I'm going to pull it down just a teeny bit, hit OK. And now as you can see, there's like a distinct line going through the image of where the overlay is stopped. You can either add a layer mask and use a soft black brush to mask it off, or if you go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just add a blur about like 30 or 40%. And as you can see, the the line is completely gone now. So I just love that. I want to change the tone of the sun, and it's really easy to do, guys. You just go into the adjustments, grab a hue and saturation adjustment layer, hit this little arrow so it's only affecting the sun, and I'm going to push it over to the left a little and make it more of a peachy blush color, and I'm going to drop the saturation down just ever so slightly. And there we go. Before and after, before and after. And then I just like to kind of pause and take the image in as a whole. And as I'm doing this, I notice that his shirt is a little bit too bright and his hand is a little bit too red. So I'm going to go back into the Ultimate Dodge and Burn, and I am going to go down to the clothing. And if you remember, I used the Dodge and Burn combo on here, so I'm going to select that layer mask, use a soft black brush at 100% or 50% opacity, and mask some of that off. And that looks a lot better to me. And now I need to go into the actions again. We're going to go back into the Retouch, Skin Color Correction. Click up top, hit play. And now I want to reduce red. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to use a soft white brush at 100% opacity. And when I first brush it on, his skin is going to look a little dead. But again, I like to see where I'm painting. And then we will dial that back. So that takes some of the bright red out and leaves it just kind of peachy and nice. It looks like we also have a little bit of red on his thumb that I want to get rid of. And a little bit right there. It also helps getting rid of some of the orangey tones if it's too much on the skin. And that looks good to me. Before and after. Okay, and I think the last thing I want to do is, if you notice Dad's shirt is still a little purpley blue, I want to tone that down again. So I'm going to go into the adjustments layer, select a hue and saturation. You can just go into the blue tones, or you can use this little hand tool arrow thing, eyedropper. Click it, and then you can just dial back the saturation, and I'm going to decrease the lightness too, and that looks better to me. So before and after. And now I'm going to show you where we started again and where we finished. So this is where we started, and this is where we are done. I hope that you all have a wonderful day. You can find everything I used here at www.storyvillephotography.com. Thanks, guys. Bye.